Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 16, Episode 135. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Wednesday, Steelers Nation, Dave. And the NFL always keeping us busy, the Pittsburgh Steelers in particular. We got some contract extensions, we got some signings, we have some releases, we have some schedule news. We have it all today, even on a Wednesday in mid-May. So, Dave, how you doing?
Bonjour, Monsieur Kozora.
God. You got me good on that one.
You knew I was going to have some fun with that one. I don't know. I guess that's the big news that we should start with there. The full international schedule was released by the NFL just about an hour or so ago, and rumblings started on Tuesday night that the Steelers would be playing the Saints in Paris, and that's exactly what's going to happen. So why don't you tell the folks about that and why you will not be going to Paris, France?
I won't be going anywhere that's not my house. They could have been playing it in Paris, PA, and I wouldn't be going there. But the Steelers and Saints will play the NFL's first ever Paris game this October. It's going to be October 25th, Week 7, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time kickoff. The Saints will be the host team, so Pittsburgh will not lose one of their home games because of this, but they will play an international game for the second straight season after hosting the Ireland-Dublin game a year ago, and probably more to come. I would expect Mexico City, maybe even as early as 2027, as the NFL continues and increases its global push, a record 9 international games in 2026. So Steelers, Saints in Paris.
All right. Let's see. Where do we want to start the thoughts off on that? For starters, I'm a bit surprised that this ended up happening, especially after
there were a couple rumors, I think, about it, but you can never really tell what's fact and fiction.
Yeah, I think a lot of the Paris rumors had the Browns possibly going over there and playing the Saints and all. And once again, this, even though there were kind of rumblings that maybe it wasn't going to be the Browns, it did kind of catch me by surprise on Tuesday night. I know a lot of fans are angry about this, even though this is not a home game that the Steelers are losing. I can somewhat see where a lot of them are coming from, especially those that live, down in the southeastern United States, because obviously it's not often that the Steelers play in New Orleans down there, or really for that matter, even some of the Florida teams down there in Miami and Tampa Bay and Jacksonville and even Atlanta to some degree, just because of the rotating schedule and all like that. So look, I mean, New Orleans, when I lived in Pensacola, that was the closest place to go see the Steelers play. Normally we would only get to see that happen during the preseason there. So I know a lot of fans down in the Southeast were probably looking forward to the Steelers playing on the road in New Orleans. I imagine New Orleans, the city, is going to miss out on having all those Steeler fans show up there. But the Steelers, I think, do play. Who else do they play? The Falcons. They play the Falcons at home, don't they, this year? Let me pull up who the opponents are this year. I know they played Jacksonville, I think.
I think they play the NFC South. I know they play Tampa Bay, so I assume they're playing everybody else.
All right, the Falcons is going to happen in Pittsburgh, so that wasn't going to happen this year. But the Steelers do play the Jaguars and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the road this year. So for fans that are maybe had their sights on going to New Orleans, who live down that way, I don't know, maybe they can end up going to Tampa. The Steelers also play on the road in Nashville, so I don't know, versus the Titans. Maybe that's something they could get to there. But yeah, just quite interesting overall. Look, Personally, I like it from the standpoint that that means that that game's going to come on 6:30 a.m. my time out here in Vegas, and I'm already up out of bed at 4:45 every morning anyway, even on a regular Sunday. So it doesn't impact me, but I know a lot of fans are over the international schedule, but you better get used to it because they seem to add more and more games every year, right? So, and then as you mentioned, we'll have to see what happens next year. Maybe the Steelers go to Mexico and play down there as well too. So that is obviously some of the biggest news that we have to open with today. What are your thoughts on them going over there? Are you indifferent to it?
Generally, I understand fan frustration for those who were planning the trip to New Orleans. We know that Steeler fans are everywhere, and so you have plenty of fans down there that were eager to be able to see the team locally, and that no longer will be the case. As you said, maybe they'll go to one of those other games in Jacksonville or Tampa or Nashville, Tennessee. But the NFL wants to continue to expand the game globally. I think the league knows right now that probably putting a team overseas permanently, a franchise like a Jacksonville, is not the most feasible thing. And so the next best thing, and really even regardless of if it's a team, permanently overseas or not, they want to just have a rotating cast. And I think the NFL's vision is basically for every NFL team to play at least one international game per season. That feels like the long-term outlook in goal over the next 5, 10 years from now. So get used to it. Unfortunately, Pittsburgh at least is not losing a home game this year. That's a positive. They'll probably lose one next year if they play overseas. They'll have 9 home games next year if they play in Mexico City, which seems relatively likely at this point. So it'll be interesting, though. It's cool to be part of the firsts, and the first game in Paris is pretty cool. It's going to be at the Stade de France Stadium, which was built in 1998, holds just over 80,000 people, so should be a great crowd in attendance.
All right, we would send Alex, except for they don't have sheets over there, so Alex would starve. So that's the big news there. I guess the next question would be, should we expect the Steelers to have a bye in, I guess, either
Yeah,
week
week
6
8. Well,
or
usually
week
it's the
8?
week after they do it.
Okay. All right.
I know that last year the Steelers tried to get the NFL to not give them their bye after the Dublin game, which would have been week 6. They ultimately were given it, so there's a little bit of say the team gets, but clearly not enough to totally dictate things. They may be more accepting of a week 8 bye this year because that's a little more middle of the season as opposed to week 6, which creates a long end of the season, obviously. So that's a fair question, fair point. Schedule release date is Thursday, so obviously the Friday show will be recapping that, and I'm sure more leaks will be happening throughout maybe today and certainly throughout the day on Thursday. We'll have a post on the site relatively soon. It's not up yet. That'll be tracking any of those credible leaks.
All right, let's see. It looks like I guess we can count on the Steelers not playing the Ravens in Week 3 because the Ravens will be playing the Cowboys in Rio de Janeiro. I'm guessing that the Steelers, I guess it's weeks 4 through 6 here. The Colts, I think, are on the schedule. They play Week 4, I think, over at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. In week 4, the Jaguars, who are on the Steelers schedule, play, I think, week 5 and week 6 overseas. The Bengals and the Falcons are both on the schedule. The Steelers will not be playing either one of those teams in week 9. Who else is on the schedule? The Patriots, right? They play in Germany in week 10. So don't have to worry about that happening. And I think that's as far as I've gotten through kind of my grid right now. But we'll start as these leaks start coming in. We'll start boxing out the schedule, and I think we're going to have the annual leak post up on the site. Thursday morning, right?
Yeah, whenever some more leaks start coming out, whether that's later today, on Wednesday or Thursday, it'll be up there as it always is. You're much more of a schedule junkie than I am. Really, the schedule is the one part of the NFL events calendar that I loathe. I really just don't care much about the schedule. It is what it is. We know the opponents. Certainly, you'll take a look at primetime games and bye weeks and things like the international game. So there's some relevancy, but I don't map it out the way that you and some others do. So more power to you guys on all things schedule related.
All right, we've got some other kind of substantial news to talk about in addition to the game over in Paris, right?
We do. Let's sort of work backwards here from news that took place yesterday, right around the same time that that leak about the Paris game was announced. The Steelers, or according to the NFL transaction sheet, the Steelers released Cory Trice Jr., the former seventh-round cornerback, plagued by injury. It came with a failed physical designation, and so we could maybe assume that's related to the knee issues of last year, or maybe there was a new injury suffered this year. We don't know exactly what that failed physical is in relation to, but we know that Cory Trice Jr. no longer a Steeler. We know his career, even dating back to high school and college, has been defined by and plagued by injury problems. And so only played in a handful of games with the Steelers, showed some promise when healthy, but that health, unfortunately, was always fleeting.
Yep. Boy, you just hate to hear that for a guy that obviously had the issues coming out of college of Purdue several years ago, and yeah, now look, there's a little bit difference here with the failed physical designation. That's different than being waived injured. So I do not believe that he'll have to clear waivers or anything like that. In other words, I don't think he's going to revert back to IR. I think this is just cutting ties with him. We'll know for sure within probably later on today, because today is it was on the official transaction sheet yesterday. So waived with the failed injury designation, that should show up clearing waivers today unless somebody claims him. I don't think this is a situation where he's going to revert back to the IR type
Is there a
situation.
reason why it happened yesterday? Because there were multiple players around the NFL who were released with that same designation. Is there a reason why that's happening on May 12th?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't have a great answer for it as to why. I really don't. I'll have to look into maybe if there is something related to the NFL calendar or something related to that. So
Okay.
I don't have any sort of an answer for that.
I know obviously OTAs are coming up, and so maybe they're getting ahead of that. Pittsburgh is still doing some on-field activity as part of phase two. We saw Broderick Jones. You had the eagle eye of him on the field going through a drill, which was a positive sign
Oh,
for his health situation. So again, my sense is this is not a new injury because you saw multiple players around the NFL given the same designation. So maybe just be the time of year where teams do their physicals and they're doing their health checks, and it just makes sense to do it. But no matter the particulars, that just unfortunate that Trice had talent. We saw the interception against Denver in that Week 2 game. And he had a really good training camp maybe 2 years ago. Last year pulls his hamstring during the Friday Night Lights practice, on IR, tries to come back. I think his first practice back mid-season, hurts his knee. He's done. That's just kind of the story on him. Tore his ACL the first padded practice as a rookie, pulled his hamstring, I think that week after the Denver game in his sophomore season. It's just been one thing after another, and just the worst injury look imaginable.
how many snaps was he even able to get on the field for throughout his
I
career
mean,
in Pittsburgh?
he his sophomore year, he played like 200 defensive snaps because when he came
Yeah.
back, he had the game against Chase. So he took some lumps early in that one. 193, which all came in 2024 across 6 games.
All right, and 60 more on special teams. So this will always be, look, if he didn't have the injury concerns coming out of college, he obviously would have been drafted, higher than he was there. So unfortunately, this didn't work out for him. We'll see if he can just get healthy now and maybe end up on a practice squad or something like that with the team moving forward here. So yeah, just unfortunate with him. Talented guy. When you would think if he was able to stay healthy, he had one interception, I think, and I think he had an interception off of a 2-point conversion versus Patrick Mahomes, I think, at one point there, but just could never overcome that injury kind of designation that he had coming out of college.
We'll see if another team gives him a chance. Obviously, health depending, if he's going to be able to pass a physical elsewhere, maybe later this summer. So we'll keep an eye on that, wishing him well. But that is the story on Cory Trice Jr. Pittsburgh also making some roster moves earlier this week. They have signed at least one player who tried out as part of their rookie minicamp. It's not a punter. We're still waiting on any potential news there, but they signed center Greg Crippen, who was a 2-year starter at Michigan, obviously undrafted free agent and rookie minicamp on a tryout basis. And I know Brady Fittipaldo made a brief comment that coaches were eyeing him up during the 2-day session and seemed impressed by the job that he did. And so he'll bring some offensive line depth to Pittsburgh. In a corresponding move, the Steelers releasing offensive lineman Sateo Lameo, who had signed a reserve future contract in January.
Yeah, and I think wasn't he the only center or designated kind of center at rookie minicamp this past weekend?
Forget the entire 40-man list, but that sounds about right. There weren't a ton of linemen in general, and probably was the only center.
All right. So he'll get a chance, hopefully, to compete at training camp, assuming he can stay on the offseason roster the rest of the summer.
He's got some decent size, was kind of known as a zone blocking guy, more as a power gap guy. Lack of length hurt him. So kind of the classic Michigan center that's 6'3", 300 pounds with sub 32-inch arms. He's kind of tough and, apparently was good in his own blocking scheme. My plan is to do some tape review on him. I haven't gotten around to it yet, so we'll have that report for later this week.
All right, I wouldn't imagine if indeed he got a signing bonus at all, it's going to be all that much. I think some of those guys that get the tryout, or tryouts during rookie minicamp, if they're signed, you normally see those signing bonuses like $1,000 or something like that. But we don't have any of the signing bonuses in yet for any of the undrafted free agents. Those really became official earlier this week, I think, on the transaction sheet. So we'll pass those signing bonuses along as soon as they come in.
And Crippen, I'm sure, just happy to now officially be on a roster, signing bonus or not. Are you surprised no punter has been signed? You would imagine this team would add a punter, especially with OTA starting on the 18th, or are you just going to take it for whenever it happens?
I'm a bit surprised, but there's still time, obviously. But as you mentioned, I think coming up on Monday is when OTAs get underway, and you would like some competition in there. So at its core, yeah, I'm a bit surprised. Maybe none of the three impressed at the rookie minicamp. Maybe they're going to wait around and see if any of these other guys around the league get cut here this next week, and then make a decision from there.
Yeah, we shall see. Still would expect a second punter at least before training camp. Maybe you can go through OTAs and get away with only having one punter/holder, but would expect by training camp. And they have, I'm so bad at keeping up with the roster. I think 3 open roster spots right now, Dave. Is that where they're sitting in terms of vacancies?
I haven't updated my spreadsheet yet, but that feels like it might be right. And obviously, no word on Darnell Savage yet. Nothing's changed there. I want to go back before we move forward with talking about the Chris Boswell news and all. What did you make of Broderick Jones, of the shot that the Steelers had up on their website from I think it was from Tuesday's phase 2 session there, and he wasn't in a helmet or anything like that, but I think he had one of those big conditioning oversized
big medicine
balls that he was working with and all. But I mean, that you have to take that as a positive, right? That Broderick Jones is out there doing something.
Yeah, it's certainly not a bad sign to see him on the field and going through some sort of drill. But as you said, there's still a difference between doing that in full contact and having the pads on. And I'm sure that's the last hurdle to clear. So obviously, OTAs, whenever they begin on Monday, is he suited up? That's the first time you really be able to practice like something closer to a true NFL practice. And is he doing at least individual work? Is he in a helmet? What is the level of participation will kind of really be a good indicator of where he's at. But certainly the fact that he's been pretty involved from what we can kind of tell in terms of being part of drills and being on the grass and doing the same things as teammates to at least some respect, some degree, is a good sign for him. And we'll have to watch it going forward. But I think beginning Monday will really tell us a lot about where he's at.
Yeah, we'll be waiting for the reports there when OTAs get underway, and then obviously over the next several weeks with and then mandatory minicamp sandwiched within there as well too. So I took it as a positive. I wasn't expecting, as I scrolled through those photos, to see him, but it did jump out. So I think you just take it as a positive overall. It would be great if even if it's as late as the start of training camp, that he's able to not start off training camp on the active PUP list. That'll be a big plus there.
I think it's possible. Again, the timeline in each situation is different, obviously, but about 6 months is the recovery time for these types of neck injuries and spinal fusion surgeries that Jones had. We saw Sunday Samuel had about a 6-month turnaround, I think from April when he had the surgery or so to getting signed in October. So it probably would be surprising if Jones was fully participating in OTAs upcoming, but if he can get ready for training camp, that would be great. And that seems like at least a possible timeline.
All right. Let's see. I guess it's on to the Boswell news next, right?
Yeah, let's get to the big story of the week. The Steelers getting a key extension signed with one of their top players in kicker Chris Boswell, a 4-year, $28 million deal of new money, tying him with Brandon Aubrey, the Dallas Cowboys, for the highest paid kicker in the league and in NFL history. Some of the local guys will frame it as a 5-year deal, considering the old money and current or previous contract that Boswell was working under. But no matter how you want to spin the details of the deal is done. Boswell in Pittsburgh long term and well deserved, one of the NFL's best kickers.
First and foremost, I do not understand why places like the Post-Gazette, Jerry Dulac, insist on trying. And I can't imagine that the team is trying to push it to be presented in such a manner and calling it a ripped up deal and really a 5-year deal, and then presenting his average yearly value as lower than what the rest of the major media is. And I know people will say, well, the major media are guys like Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport present it that way because that's the way the agents want it presented, because it makes it look, or makes it, or at least it comes with a higher average yearly value. And we've had this conversation for several years now. The standard is to look at these contracts, so you can compare them kind of universally by the new money average. And you see that around the league, and the Steelers aren't the only team to take the old money and roll it in with the new money, and then thus lower the base salary of the what was maybe left on let's say the final year, as was the case with Chris Boswell here. This is $28 million in new money over the 4 new years, and that's the way it's calculated by over the cap and all these other salary cap. It just gives you a good base to look at measuring all players across the league there. So even though Dulac calls this a $31.12 million 5-year deal, which it technically kind of is, because Boswell had $3.12 million left on his old contract, and that's what he was scheduled to earn in cash in 2026. This is new money of $28 million, and that's the way it's classified, and that's why the 4 new years divided by $28 million comes up with a new money average of $7 million, which now ties him with Brandon Aubrey from the Cowboys as the highest paid kicker in the NFL. Now Jerry did pass on some pertinent information here, at least on the surface. Now, we don't have the full details of this Chris Boswell, how it's laid out just yet here, but Dulac reported that $14.7 million of this contract is guaranteed. I would imagine that all $14.7 million of that is not in 2026. I would imagine that Boswell, his 2026 money goes from 3.12 million to probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 11 million. I don't know, maybe an $8 to $9 million signing bonus, and whatever is left over from that guaranteed money. As Boswell's last deal that he signed, he had a fully guaranteed roster bonus in the following March of the last deal that he had, meaning the first new year of the contract. So being as how Boswell is now technically the highest paid player at his position, albeit tied with Brandon Aubrey, I would look for a roster bonus in 2027 in March, possibly being fully guaranteed as well too. Now, once again, we don't know what Boswell's new cap charge is for 2026, but I can almost guarantee you it's not going to be that far off of what it was originally scheduled to be. And a lot of people are saying, well, 4 years, that's a bit too long. Well, you got to look at it this way. What are the chances of Boswell playing out all through 2030, I guess? Probably not great overall. You have to really look at this as an extension of at least through possibly 2027, and then if he's still kicking good, he's got a good chance of seeing the years further than that. So more than anything, the 4 additional years put on this help with the proration of the signing bonus, which in turn will help keep Boswell's 2026 cap charge in check. Are we surprised that this was done? No, I don't think either one of us. I think more than anything, maybe a little bit surprised at the timing of this, but as soon as Brandon Aubrey got that deal done several weeks ago, that was the line in the sand. That's what the Steelers were dealing with. We all know how the Steelers generally do the guaranteed money and the signing bonuses and percentages and all like that. So really, it just became a matter of when, not if, Boswell was going to sign this deal this offseason. It's always better to get it done earlier than in the offseason rather than later. Could they have perhaps beat Aubrey to the table and maybe saved a little bit of money that way? I think we're into semantics a little bit there.
Yeah, plus the deal is identical,
Right.
which is fine. They didn't have to then top the deal. And plus Aubrey was on the tender. Dallas had to get that deal done earlier. I'm okay. And Pittsburgh got this one done early, which is great.
Right. The only big question here as far as the contract matching up with Aubrey is really what is either player getting as far as total cash in 2026, and then what is the new money, quote unquote, for the first new year of the contract being 2027, and doing a comparative that way. So we'll sort all through that. Probably, I don't know if we're going to get numbers by Friday or not, but sometime next week we should have the full layout of the Chris Boswell extension and then go from there. But well deserved for a guy like Chris Boswell. I kind of thought the Steelers should have gotten ahead of this last offseason and got it done. Obviously, they didn't, and because they didn't last offseason, because of the season that Chris Boswell had last year, this was something that we expected to happen, and now it has happened, and now the team can move on to the next one on the list.
It all worked out, and as you said at the end there, I think a big reason to get this deal done now is part because the market was set. There wasn't much else to really discuss after the Aubrey deal got finalized, but also give you plenty of time to now focus on Joey Porter Jr., and Darnell Washington, and potentially Nick Herbig, Keanu Benton, all the other contract situations that will be talked about over the summer, and those are going to be pretty large deals, especially Porter and potentially Herbig if a deal gets finalized there. So get this thing done, out of the way, move on, focus on the rest of the guys, but well-deserved for Boswell. Greatest kicker in Steelers history. Is that a fair assessment, a fair statement?
Yeah, without a doubt. And what does he need? 90-something points or something in 2026 to overtake Gary Anderson, is it?
He needs 94 points to overtake Anderson for the leading scorer in Pittsburgh history, and 11 field goals to surpass Anderson's 309 for most in Steelers history, two marks we would expect him to achieve, assuming he's fully healthy all year.
All right, here's to Boswell not having to kick as many field goals, though, on top of it as well, too. So seems like the Steelers are in good hands, remain in good hands with Chris Boswell moving forward.
Just a wild, fortunate, out of the worst circumstances of you lose Sean Sweezum to that just weird turf in your knee injury in that preseason game. I guess that was grass, the terrible field that was Tom Benson Stadium. You had Garrett Hartley, who then got hurt, which people forget about. Then you, of course, trade for Josh Scobie. Disaster. You're on Boswell, your fourth string kicker in a season, and he ends up being the greatest kicker in franchise history. Just great that it worked out that way. his ability to hit from 50 plus is uncanny, even by modern NFL standards, which is a golden era of kicking. He's still among the best, kicking in Pittsburgh, no less, in the climate, kicking in Baltimore and Cleveland, Cincinnati in those conditions too. I think the stat I have for an upcoming article is there's been, since he was signed by Pittsburgh in 2015, there's been 3 games, playoffs included, in which the Steelers have kicked at least 5 field goals, scored no touchdowns, and Boswell had 6 in all 3 of those games. No other team over that span has more than 1 such game, and Pittsburgh won all 3 of those games that Boswell had those 6 field goals in. So literally giving you 3 wins in a way that just kickers and teams don't manufacture. So obviously, as you said, you want to score more touchdowns and kick more extra points than field goals, and Pittsburgh got a little better there last year than 2024, which was literally one of the best kicking seasons in history by any kicker. Boswell's 24 season, 25, not quite as strong, but still pretty darn good. So well deserved. Patient Bos never made a fuss about it, even though he could have done that last summer, and happily rewarded by the contract this
All
week.
right. All right. And we'll wait and see what the details and how, which way it shifts the cap charge once again, which won't be much either way. I imagine it's going to go up just a tiny bit overall, but we'll wait till we get the numbers in. So that is that when it comes to Boz. And I guess the next question is who will be the next one? And I think Omar Khan had, I don't want to say entertaining, I'll say interesting interview on the Debo and Joe podcast, James Harrison and Joe Hayden, and he was asked quite a different, there wasn't a lot of takeaway from that interview overall, but I believe he did comment some on potential extensions moving forward, right?
Yeah, he had teased that he's talking to some guys, and I assume some agents too, about contracts. That's all he said. Wouldn't go into detail about which players and where those talks stand. But Khan doubled down. I think maybe he or someone made a comment recently that they want to get some of these guys from the 23 draft class signed. Knows that you might not be able to sign them all, but they're going to try to sign as many as possible. And the names are obviously Joey Porter Jr. and Keanu Benton and Darnell Washington, Nick Herbig, even Spencer Anderson. I would mention him just as a potential, even though probably unlikely, candidate. But you would expect Porter to be next. That'll be the largest contract of them all that could get done. Probably $100 million, 4 or 5 year extension for Porter at least. And so that's probably next on the docket. Probably will take some time to get done, but he could be next on the list to join Boz.
All right. I think Omar Khan said specifically, we have some good young players that we'd like to extend, right? Realistically, you'd love to get them all. Probably doesn't always happen that way. Just constraints with the cap and different other things. We're talking to some guys and we'll see where it goes. Excuse me. But it's a good situation to be in. I love our group of young guys here. There's a lot of guys here that we hope are going to be playing double-digit years here. So we'll see, Khan said Tuesday on the Debo and Joe show. So how do you interpret that when it comes to the remaining list of, I guess, 4, as you mentioned, right? That would be Porter, Washington, Herbig, and Benton.
And Spencer Anderson, maybe, although probably not.
Okay.
But just to give another name out there, like if Anderson has a really good summer and wins the left guard job, if you're Pittsburgh, you try to do a last second extension right before the season, you probably at least have some of those talks.
I suppose, but then you have to look at it from Anderson's point of view as well, too, much in the same light that we looked at it from Herbig and Benton. Maybe it might be worth it for him not to do a low budget deal and lock himself up, say, for 2 additional years.
Right, but I'm just saying you talk to him. You've
Sure.
had those talks and see
Sure.
if there's potential there.
Especially if it looks like he's going to come out of training camp, but for whatever reason, injury, who knows what's going to happen as a starting left guard. Sure.
But yeah, to your point, I mean, I think the Steelers recognize that you got to be active and aggressive here and get multiple of these guys signed, not just one of them. You have a really good 23 class, your first round pick, probably not going to get re-signed. And so that's already kind of a knock there. But then the rest of the class certainly has a lot of potential to be brought back. And you compare that to the 22 class, which is entirely vacant and gone, not drafted by Omar Khan, but still that's the class before. Nobody remains a Steeler. Nobody re-signed. And so to kind of quote unquote make up for that, to be aggressive and get some of those 23 guys, which are deservedly worthy of extensions, and second contracts will be big for a franchise that has not done a good enough job of being able to secure second contracts and find guys worthy of being signed to second deals. So I think you want to be aggressive here and get many of these guys locked up.
All right. Should we take it as realistically you'd love to get them all? Probably doesn't always happen that way. Just constraints with the cap and different other things. Should we take that quote as meaning probably not going to get at least the top four, all of them signed to extensions?
I mean, that's what Omar Khan said, is that you probably won't get all four signed, which is, tough to do with four good contracts like that. Do you take that as, who's he talking about? He's talking about a Nick Herbig because of the situation outside linebacker. We'll have to see, but you want to get probably at least two of those guys extended, and I think obviously Porter and Washington are the most likely candidates.
I would agree. All right.
All right, but if those things happen, it'll probably be a little while. Maybe Porter could get done in June, like the Minka deal did a couple of years ago, and then the others. I mean, Washington could get done in June too. It's probably an easier contract to work through. Then, did we talk about the comparables for Washington and his contract? And we mentioned him a little bit in the past. Charlie Kolar, Josh Oliver. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, we've briefly, I think, kind of touched on it. And when you mentioned Kolar there, $8.1 million new money average. Jaceki, $8.5 million. Let's see, Chig Okonkwo with the Commanders is now making $9 million. Hunter Henry with the Patriots, $9 million. Cade Otton with the Buccaneers is $10 million. I think that's about the line right there, unless you want to throw, definitely wouldn't probably put him in the class of the TJ Hawkinson or I don't know, what do you think about Jawan Johnson? It's $10.25 million. I guess what I'm getting at here is you would probably expect him to exceed Josh Oliver's also down there at $7.75 million. Is it fair to think that a minimum would be above Jaceki at 8.5, which is slightly higher than Kolar at 8.1? I haven't pulled the stats obviously and all like that, and obviously with a guy like Washington, you have to take the blocking into account. But it feels like if I'm Washington's side, I'm not even getting into conversation with the Steelers unless we're talking about a new money average more than Jaceki's of 8.5 million. So is that fair?
Well, I look at the comparables of age and kind of archetype, for lack of a better word. Washington, block first, catch second, even though there's certainly some receiving ability. He's a blocker first. And the guys in his age range with that style, John Bates, $7 million at Washington, Charlie Kolar, Chargers, $8.1 million, and Josh Oliver, Vikings, $7.75, which I think was signed 2 years ago, a little older contract there. So those are the comparables that you kind of work off of. Obviously, you'll get above Bates, you would expect. Probably gets above Oliver because that contract's a little bit older. I think you probably look at about $8 million as maybe the floor for him. I'm sure Washington would like to jump what Charlie Kolar got from the Chargers, so at least 8.2. But I'd probably say 8 is around the floor, and then what's the high end? It's harder to find that maybe higher end comp because there's no real blocker types above that. Kolar is kind of the highest paid blocking tight end in the NFL. So I wouldn't say that Gesicki's going to be the floor, but certainly Washington could jump above it and get 8.75 million or something like that.
All right, you think at least the ceiling you would probably expect to be around 10.5 million? It's hard to imagine him going too much higher than that. You got Pat Freiermuth sitting there at 12.1, up the list a little ways. So I'm thinking personally, I think the range should be somewhere between 9 and let's say $10.5 million new money average.
All right, I'll say 8 to 10. I think 10's probably, to match the Otten deal, is probably about the ceiling where Pittsburgh would go, but we'll see.
All right. And I'll get some comparables as far as stats go, but I think this is pretty cut and dry, much like, or at least a little bit more so than guys like Benton and Herbig and all like that. So anyway, that's where I'm at on it, and I think they should be able to get something done with him with just first year guaranteed money at some point between now and the start of the regular season.
Yeah, that seems reasonable. I've kind of got a little back and forth on the likelihood of the Washington deal, and I've kind of warmed up to the idea that it's probably going to happen based on Omar Khan's comments and Mike McCarthy liking tight ends a little more than maybe his reputation would suggest. He does want to have multiple tight ends and rely a little more on 12 personnel, not to the Arthur Smith level, but he's not quite so 11 personnel all the time as maybe some people think about a McCarthy offense.
All right.
All right, Dave, anything else? Anything else from Omar Khan during that interview with James Harrison and Joe Hayden? It was kind of jumbled around, they were just chatting, but that was probably the big thing on the contracts from Omar Khan.
Yeah, I think that was about it when it comes to him.
Let's see. Any other news here, Dave? I think we kind of hit on all the big things. I know Mike Clay of ESPN did his annual projections, which I'm not even really taking a look at yet. So you probably know them a little better than I do. I'll pull them up now. And, obviously they're just projections. I think he does them off of a 15-game projection because he assumes some injury built into it all. So the numbers usually are a little bit under what you might expect over a full 17-game, totally healthy season. So any thoughts on what Mike Clay had to say?
Well, do you want to dive maybe deeper into that on the Friday show? Us go that way, and in the meantime, let's see who was it you that ranked the Steelers' 5 best offseason moves? Why don't we use that as a topic of discussion, and then save the Mike Clay? That will give you a chance to kind of dive deeper into the Mike Clay. Not that Mike Clay's the end all do all, but it seems like for several years now that becomes an annual thing that we write about when he releases them for ESPN, and we always have a little bit of fun with some over and unders, I think, compared to that. So I'm guessing the Friday show might be a little bit slower. So why don't we focus on those and go over those on Friday, and let's talk about your ranking of the Steelers' 5 best offseason moves.
All right, good deal. So I put together my list of the 5 best off-season moves, and you tell me if you agree or disagree on anything, or if your list would look different. This is strictly for players, not about anything coaching related, although there's plenty of coaching changes that were made in 2026. But number 5, the trades for wide receivers Michael Pittman Jr. and Jeremy Bernard. I'm still not as in love with Pittman as maybe others are, but you can't deny the really good value from a trade standpoint, getting Pittman for a 16 spot move down with the Colts. I know the Colts were going to cut him. They had little leverage. You got to pay Pittman too. That's part of the trade, but still from a trade standpoint, really good value. And then Bernard being aggressive in round 2, moving up 6 spots, getting your guy after missing on Mekhi Lemon in round 1. That was a smart move by Omar Khan, not giving up much in the process either.
All right, I'm assuming you did this from basically a ranking, right? So in other words, this would be, I would move this up a little bit on the list that you have, for the sheer fact that how long have we talked about, man, Steve's got to really get away from these empty route runners. And obviously the trading away of Pickens, and then we see the having to patch things with like trading for a guy like Mike Williams a couple of years ago and all. Even though I'm with you, I'm not in the category of thinking Pittman's a huge move the needle guy, and obviously got a rookie coming in Jeremy Bernard. But look, this is at least better than what it's been, in my opinion.
Sure, but is that the bar that you really want to use, as in to rank it really high? I mean, it is certainly better than what Pittsburgh has had, but I don't use that as the litmus test for it being a great move.
Well, look, all I'm saying is according to the list that you have, to me, this is kind of a Ritz category when you've been giving me great value cocktail crackers, from Walmart there. So
just to approximate it, I know it's tough to do. There's no real criteria, but on a scale of 1 to 10, the addition on Michael Pittman Jr., how much does that move the needle? 1 being it doesn't move it at all, 10 being it moves the needle like crazy.
I'd give it a 7.
What about acquiring Bernard and trading up for and drafting Jeremy Bernard? 1 to 10.
I'd give it a 7, I think.
Okay, I might come a little under on Pittman and maybe about the same on Bernard. So it's still good, but do you have that guy that can really beat man coverage? That's still a bit of a question. And Pittman, not really that guy. Bernard, a good route runner. I really want to see what man coverage looks like. As I said before, some of the metrics on him coming out of college against man weren't his strong suit. A little more of a zone beat, a little more of a feel and find the soft spot in the defense. So that's why I don't have it ranked as high. But I understand certainly we'll have an upgraded version of Pittsburgh's wide receiver core this year.
All right, I think I would have had that listed number 4, and I would think I would have your number 4 as number 5. So tell the people what your number 4 is.
Yeah, that was signing safety Jaquan Brisker. I think just such a steal of a deal. 1 year, $5.5 million for a 17-game starter last year who's put on some really good tape. I think will fit well under DC Patrick Graham just from the value standpoint, a shrewd signing to get this guy. I mean, it's fair to say that Pittman Jr. Bernard may end up having more production, more value, impact, but it's just from a standpoint of the value and a shrewd signing to get Brisker, who can be either your third safety, a sub package guy, maybe he's your strong safety. He could fit a lot of ways for this defense. And to me, that was just a great deal to get done.
And especially too, you got Deshaun Elliott coming off the unfortunate injury that he had, so it gives you some more depth overall at the safety position as well too. So yeah, I definitely understand why you have this on the list. It would have probably been on my list if asked to build something similar. I probably would have ranked Brisker fifth and Pittman and Jeremy Bernard additions as being forward.
That's fair. That's fair. Third, signing Jamel Dean, even though I did want Pittsburgh to get a little bit younger defensively to add a quality corner like Dean coming off an excellent 2025 season, a good scheme fit. The contract is good money. Pittsburgh can get out of it after the first year if things really do go south. Hopefully that doesn't happen to another veteran free agent corner, but from the money standpoint, the fit standpoint, the play standpoint, good on Dean.
Yeah, I'm definitely on board with this being on the list and right where you have them here. So yeah, I'm with you there.
And then number 2, Boswell's extension. Even though we assumed it was going to get done, I kind of made this list from the standpoint: what if it didn't get done? How would you feel about that? You feel pretty upset about it. So to get it done, get it done early to add more time to focus on the games we mentioned: Porter, Washington, Benton, Herbig, etc. Just to reward one of your really great players who's just been consistent and excellent and not made a fuss about the contract. That's the right way to go about it.
Absolutely. And now you don't have to worry about training camp arriving and Boswell something all of a sudden happening with maybe a sore hamstring or something like that as he waits for an extension. So you got that done, got it out of the way. We knew it was probably going to come at some point. It's better now to get that behind you at this point. So yeah, this is a guy that, as we talked earlier in the show, is money, well deserved. Didn't make any fuss last offseason about it, even though I kind of wondered if maybe he would just show up at minicamp or mandatory minicamp and OTAs and just do absolutely nothing. He went about his business as usual. So a good reward there, and the timing's great, and it's something that had to get done this offseason. And once again, now you don't have to worry about it going into the start of training camp.
I also mentioned Cam Hayward getting that extension done in March was good to get that done early, out of the way, not have the summer saga storylines that we've had the last 2 years. So good on both sides coming together and getting that deal done bright and early. And then number 1, the best offseason move was kind of a catch-all of continued offensive line investments. Pittsburgh has not been shy or bashful about investing in its front 5, even though you wish that Broderick Jones would have worked out. You wouldn't have to draft another tackle. The injury was partially a reason why Pittsburgh did, and obviously out of Pittsburgh's control. So Iheanacho, Dunker, top 100 picks, Brock Hoffman signing as a shrewd, cheap contract, a veteran, experienced interior player. You love working on the trenches and building up the offensive line, defensive line. Pittsburgh has done so emphatically, and that's been great to see.
Hear, hear. And I think the hope is at this point, as we've talked about, that maybe we get to week 1 and you have Jennings Dunker, your starting left guard, and for all we know, possibly Iheanacho as your starting right tackle. So I think that's what everybody should be rooting for at this point. And yeah, hopefully you're not worried about the offensive line, especially not having to worry about drafting a tackle or interior or any offensive lineman at all in the first, let's say, 2 or 3 rounds, or at least the next couple of drafts.
Another arbitrary question, but what % chance do you give of Dunker and Iheanacho starting in week 1 against whoever that'll be, and the team will find out by Thursday night?
I'll say sight unseen. I'll give it a greater than 50% chance. I'll go 62%.
I was thinking about 60, 65, so I'll hold your hand there. So Yeah, I think Pittsburgh did even though Honda Shore was not on my radar necessarily, I can still see the logic in the selection. And if you can get him and Honda to be your long-term tackles, then Pittsburgh will be sitting pretty.
All right,
Uh,
I like your bonus one here.
Yeah, that was signing defensive lineman Sebastian Joseph Day, which on the surface, backup defensive lineman might not be a sexy addition, but really good run defense, can play in, can play nose tackle, good contract, really, again, beefing up the interior, the trenches, and having quality defensive line depth behind your starters is really important for run defense. That has not been good enough when you're in an AFC North facing Baltimore's rushing attack, and Cleveland's going to be a run heavy outfit under Todd Monken and a revamped offensive line and Judkins, etc. So I think Joseph Day was a really good signing.
All right, what kind of candidate might this look? I said at the beginning of the offseason here, man, I really would like this team to address the depth on the defensive line with a veteran there, and perhaps even maybe draft one at some point as well too, which they obviously did with Gabriel Rubio, who, well, first has got a huge story of even making the 53-man roster. He's got to stay healthy, but I love. I love the signing of Joseph Day, and the question I would have is, what are the chances that come February of 2027 that we're talking about? Boy, what a huge underrated signing Sebastian Joseph Day was.
It's fair. Will he be this year's Deshaun Elliott or to some extent Brandon Eccles, which felt like really shrewd 2-year signings? Obviously his impact may be a little less uh, noticeable in the sense of, Elliott's plays, Eccles plays when you're playing DB. You kind of feel that a little bit more just watching a highlight reel of a game. But you could, when you get into the tape, we'll certainly be able to see if Joseph Day can anchor against the run and really provide an impact there. So to answer your question, yeah, I think there's a chance that you're going to feel really good about this contract and the contributions he made this year.
Yeah, and look, obviously you hope nobody gets injured on that offensive line. I mean, on that defensive line, but you got a guy that fit in there hopefully for just only a couple of games and get a little bit of increase of snaps and you not have the quality of play fall off too terribly far. So I like the signing there. I like you listing it as a bonus in this group list of 5. Go over your honorable mentions listed here below.
Yeah, signing running back Rico Dowdle, drafting wide receiver returner Caden Weegen, and then sometimes the best moves are the ones you don't make. So I put not trading Patrick Queen and not cutting Jalen Ramsey. So Dave, aside from switching Brisker and the receivers on my list, would you put anything new or any of those honorable mentions into your top 5 and take out one of the top 5 rankings?
No, I don't believe so.
Because I thought maybe some would say Dowdle should be in the top 5. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. Is that better than Brisker or something else?
Look, I mean, obviously because of the familiarity and how we think that Dowdle will be used along with Jalen Warren, and obviously the loss of
Kenneth Gainwell?
Gainwell during the offseason, what he provided. I mean, you can never have too many good running backs, especially as Mike McCarthy calls it, 4 down running backs here. It was a good ad. Would I put it over? I don't know. I guess push comes to shove, I might put that as number 5, and then I would maybe make the signing of Jaquan Brisker as the bonus one if you were to twist my arm to find a little to be a little different here. But I don't think I'd put Weegen or not trading Patrick Queen or not cutting Jalen Ramsey in the list of top 5. But I think I could be pressed maybe to put the signing of Rico Dowdle as number 5, move up Pittman and Jeremy Bernard to 4, and then maybe listing Jaquan Brisker as the bonus.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, Dowdle, I think, will be a solid contributor and knows Mike McCarthy and knows this offense well. Maybe even can give some tips to the other running backs of what a McCarthy offense is like, which will accelerate their learning process. But I also think about, this come at the expense of losing Kenneth Gainwell, which was the one free agent I really wanted Pittsburgh to re-sign. We can debate who's the better play, who's the better scheme fit, but it kind of maybe muted the impact of signing Dowdle. When you trade for Pittman and Bernard, you're not really doing that because you lost another receiver, or when you signed Jaquan Brisker, it's not because you lost another safety or something like that. So that probably played a calculation into why I had Dowdle in the honorable mention, not on my top 5.
All right, you got quite a few comments on this thing as well too, which is good. And what was
And
the
some are nice, I think. Some of them are
yeah.
actually supportive.
What was maybe I haven't read all the comments here. There's quite a few in total
Uh,
here. What was the biggest pushback maybe of the
uh,
53 comments you have here?
most said firing Mike Tomlin should be on that list, and most did not read the part where I said it's just players only and not coaches, and so half of it's just about McCarthy and Tomlin, and no one reading the stipulations of it. In terms of actual concentrated feedback, some saying Dowdle should have been on the list. I think was the most common, which I understand.
All right. Interested see if maybe any of the listeners take issue with the rankings, or if they would have put something else in there, maybe not mentioned in the honorable mentions. But good job by you, and that obviously produced a lot of discussion in the comment section. So if you have not read it yet, it went up on the site I think this morning here, and it's easy to find on the site. So good job, Alex.
Thank you. Are there any other moves that Pittsburgh made or maybe didn't make that should be at least mentioned? Is there anything else? I try to go down through the list. Is there anything additional that's worthy of a shout out? Signing Travis Homer or something
Uh,
like that?
this Aaron Rodgers thing shouldn't have gone long,
No,
gone
that's
on,
not one of the best.
as long as it had. Nah, nothing off the top of my head. I mean, I think this offseason overall for what kind of we expected to happen, especially getting into the pre-draft and seeing what direction this team was probably going to go choosing a quarterback in the draft and uh, the way they addressed the offensive line, they did go a little heavier on offense than maybe in the draft than maybe you and I maybe originally thought, even though we thought maybe it would split out. I don't know. I had this team only making 9 draft picks, and you had it going 10. So I mean, only just a few defensive players within that. Maybe I expected a drafted inside linebacker within that, but that would have been hard to do with only 9 picks. I guess something had to give somewhere there. Maybe they could have not drafted Rubio, got him undrafted, and then maybe fit in a off the ball linebacker within there. But no, I don't have a big push as to maybe something else that coulda or shoulda happened as we sit here right now.
Guess you could say releasing Jonnu Smith was one of the best offseason moves, but we'll be nice to Jonnu. You could also say more
He
seriously
still
some
hasn't
takes.
landed anywhere yet, has he?
Correct, he is not. Now, I know that sometimes free agents will wait until after the draft because they want to see roster construction and teams want to get past the comp formula calculation period, whatever you want to call it. So I'm sure he'll get signed somewhere. I know we make the joke about he can't go to Ohio State with Arthur Smith. You could also say Asante Samuel, re-signing him to a one-year deal. Maybe could be on the honorable mention list for Cole Holcomb or something like that.
All right. I think we've got through everything we wanted to talk about today, didn't we?
I think so. So let's get to some reader emails and close out today's show.
All right, we got one from Todd Gensler in here. The CBA has really hindered the development of younger players across the NFL. There's simply not enough reps and now preseason games anymore to go around. McCarthy has also been vocal about this regarding quarterback development. He says, would McCarthy giving them a day off during rookie minicamp, is that simply a wasted day, or can they use that saved day of practice down the road? Just thinking about how valuable each and every practice essentially is for all players. Why would the majority of players sign off on this limited preseason and practice when it could mean that they don't make the squad? Or does the CBA primarily consist of superstars making the decisions? Just something I've been pondering. I think the fact that that the Steelers just decided to take that Mother's Day off, I think that's gone at this point. Is that your kind of interpretation?
Yeah, you can't get that back. You can't swap that out for another date or anything, especially for a rookie minicamp. That just gets canceled out. Like their Kennywood trip, you don't get to just put that somewhere else into the schedule. You just take that day off when the time comes.
I guess the most interesting question he has in here is, does the CBA primarily consist of superstars making the decisions? Look, I have been vocal in the past. I don't want to bore people with NFL PA negotiations and CBA negotiations, which is getting close to that time once again. But I don't think that I don't think that the younger players or representation from individual teams, their player reps and all, have done a good enough job overall of pushing for more younger player rights, be it fully guaranteed contracts or look, I think obviously veterans don't want more preseason games, but you got these futures players, these guys at the bottom end of the rosters. I wonder if you polled those guys as groups and said, "Look, would you play in an extra preseason game if that game only consisted of guys with fewer than one full accrued season?" Or say, I think it'd be heck yeah. I want as much opportunity to lay down as much tape as possible there. So that's opening up a huge Pandora's box. I think with that sort of question. And I know a lot of people don't like talking about contracts and CBA and all like that, but I put it this way several times. I don't think the NFLPA as a whole does a good enough job of pressing owners to make things better for younger players in the league.
Yeah, they're not a well-run union. They've been in disarray, especially as of late. I know they're trying to reset things, and JC Treader is now back in the fold, so they really probably need a new voice, new leadership. But I'm not, super well versed in everything union related. The players do vote on it. I think the last vote over or almost 2,000 players voted on it, and so they have to pass it. But the CBAs are not made in mind of the players at the bottom of the ladder. They're made in mind for more of a top down approach. So I'm sure that tryout guy or that 90th guy on the roster would love to have more preseason time, and the CBAs don't probably serve him well, but they're not really meant to serve him in particular. They're not really thought about in that sense. So that's just the hand those guys are dealt.
Alex, on the last show, because we got some books to give away, we got a couple of people write in. We asked people to let Alex and myself know what they think were kind of our pre-draft process, I guess, misses or things that we didn't do well. Arthur Elliott writes in, Dave and Alex, first, let me say it's hard coming up with things you guys missed during the draft process because context is everything. I think had some of the reports about Broderick come out sooner. The site has come out sooner. I don't know. This is kind of a messed up sentence. It was a while. Could have been looking at a lot closer at guys like Max. With that being said, here's my take on some misses. He says the interest in another first-round tackle, underestimating position flexibility, specifically side played in college. I think even Fanu visit had you thinking it would be to move him to guard. Number two, the Steelers' view on the middle linebacker and safety group. I think you guys, along with most Steeler fans, had these positions as higher draft priority than the Steelers addressed it. I think given the board at 21, most of us would have thought Thieneman was a guy, if not a receiver. They didn't end up drafting a linebacker in a strong class, and safety was pushed down to the 7th, much lower than we expected. I think that's a good pushback, right? About I know specifically I gave a little bit more credence to possibly a off the ball linebacker and a safety being drafted higher than the 7th round. So I think that's a fair pushback there. Number 3, the value the league would put on this tight end class. That run started way earlier than most mocks on the site and football community would have suggested. So a pushback would be that we probably underrated the tight end class overall, and those guys going, the strong group of them, the better group of them going earlier rather than say middle rounds there. And then I'll go back to what he said on as the first pushback there. Yeah, I think it's fair about the whole first round tackle consideration overall. But look, I know once the Steelers brought in a couple of those middle round tackles, who was it? Bell and
Burke.
who was Burke and all. I mean, I had one of those guys, I think, in my mock draft. So I didn't totally ignore the tackle position. I just did not give enough thought to potentially one in the first round, and certainly not to Ihanature because I had the bias, with the side related to him there. So I think those are fair pushbacks from Elliot. So we'll definitely send him a book. Arthur, send me a mailing address, shipping address, so I can get one of these books out to you, Arthur Elliott. Send that to theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. You got any rebuttal to anything that he said?
No, I think a lot of it's fair. I think, yeah, we underestimated the run on tight ends and teams really leaning into 12 personnel, 13 personnel, and that cyclical nature of the NFL of now going kind of big and physical after going small, shifty horizontal pass game and now trying to counter as defenses responded by getting smaller and faster and quicker to defend that type of stuff. So that's the chess match of the NFL. So yeah, big run on tight ends, and so that's probably something that we didn't accurately forecast coming.
All right, JJ writes in. He has some pushback. Hey guys, JJ from the Bluegrass State. Tough task picking what what mistakes you guys made referring to the draft. He says, not talking more about Max Ihanature. He says, first with Max, I think Dave admitted he didn't look at him because he was a right tackle. We actually drafted Troy, a college left tackle, with what we hoped was our long-term left tackle already on the roster. He says, McCarthy has stated wanting flexibility with his players, with the issues with Jones, should have been higher on our radar. And then second, he says, no profile on Rubio. Rubio fits what the Steelers look for when it comes to measurements. Missed on a guy that was hurt. I can see your team going further down on the list of defensive line for guys who fits with the measurements. He says, my 2 points were really nitpicky. The Steelers Depot crew does a great job. Keep up the varsity level work. All right. Thanks for the email, JJ. You get a book. You get a book too. JJ, send me a mailing address to theterriblepodcast@gmail.com, and I'll get one of the books sitting here out to you as well too. Look, we've hit on the Ihanature thing again. It wasn't that now look, did I go deep into the Ihanature tape? No. But I think he hit on it, looked at him. I looked at him mostly because he was a right tackle and kind of discounted him as a potential first round draft pick, yada, yada. So point taken there. About the no profile on Rubio, I think we can dice that up a little bit here too. Even if we had gone down further into the list there, and I had gone to Alex at some point, so look at these measurables on Rubio. You still had the fact that he missed so many games, due to injury at Notre Dame. If we had even briefly mentioned the name Rubio during the pre-draft process as a measurable guy, along with who was it? Jackson out of FSU and Thompson out of Illinois were the two that we were hyper focused on. If I had even said, boy, look at the measurables here, but man, he missed a lot of games at due to injury during his college career, do you think we still would have potentially had a profile on him?
It's probably more likely would have had one on Kevin Jabari Jr. than would have been
Mm.
Gabriel Rubio, because I would have probably gone to Dane Brugler's rankings and looked for the measurables and the size requirements, and Jabari was ranked higher than Rubio and had more production than Rubio and was healthier in 2025 than Rubio, so we probably would have one on Jabari instead of Rubio. I mean, I've tried to do that in the past. I know last year for 25, I did one on Keziah Izzard out of Penn State because he was a measurable guy that I didn't know would get drafted, but might be kind of a undrafted free agent. I think he got drafted maybe late by the Chiefs or something. So I should have done that this year and gone through that list and looked at it. But yeah, there's certainly still no guarantee we would have done a report on Gabriel Rubio.
All right. More than anything, where we miss there is not even mentioning the names of Rubio and Jabari as measurable guys as part of the other couple that we hyper focused on. Is that fair?
Yeah, we should really dedicate some space each year to here are the prototypical defensive linemen, regardless of tape, regardless of where they're likely to be drafted, if they're going to be drafted. Here are some guys who fit the mold of what Pittsburgh looks for at the end, and we should do that and be conscious of that each year.
All right, Brett Niles in here on the biggest draft mistakes. He says, you asked on the podcast about this as far as draft coverage. Here's a few, he says. So he probably could have wrote a book on this.
He had us ready to go.
Yeah,
Book or not.
not predicting a tackle in the first round. He says the Steelers have in fact drafted a tackle in the first every year under Khan, 3 offensive and 1 defensive tackle. If I were you, I'd start scouting defensive tackle for next year. Number 2, not projecting a defensive back in the 7th round. He says they've taken a defensive back in the 7th round each year under Khan. Ryan Watts was the pick last year. His year, he says, the second of 2 6-round draft picks, and they didn't have a 7th that year. Also, for your 53-man roster predictions, you should plan for Spears Jennings to start the year on the disabled list, just like the previous 3. Oh Lord, hopefully we're not speaking that into existence. Number 3, Rubio didn't need to see the tape, just the measurables. So they're another strike at us for not seeing Rubio in the measurable category. That said, the Depot crew is the best in the business. Period. All right, Brett, you get a book. Send me a mail and address, Brett. Pretty much. We got a common theme here, right? It seems like not drafting a tackle in the first, missing Rubio, not paying enough attention to tackle earlier in this draft. Seems to be the common theme so far, right?
Yeah, it does. Just on tackle, I mean, I didn't give Iheanacho a lot of credence, not because of the side thing, at least for me personally. It was just they had only looked at one early round tackle in Fano, and so I had to track more on receiver because they were looking at some of those earlier round guys, and they had more interest in bringing in more receivers than offensive linemen, and just not having the overt interest in Iheanacho. So he broke the mold, and I know I put Omar Cooper in my mock draft, and he didn't have the pro day meeting or a pre-draft 30 visit, but I thought there were more rules to make him the exception than Iheanacho. So Iheanacho was less about he was a right tackle. I wasn't really thinking about like right tackle, left tackle. I was just thinking about, they hadn't shown any overt interest in him. Now, had we known about the Zoom interview, the meeting they had with him that week, then that would have changed our equation. But I just combined that with only looking at one top 50 tackle, and that kind of is, I mean, because I had mentioned a couple of tackles. Fondo, I even mentioned Monroe Freeling, I think very late with our final podcast, like, should I put him in more consideration? So I did a little bit. This is not to excuse me. I missed on Iheanacho or hand up, I'll eat crow. But just to be clear, that was my thought process on why I didn't really show Iheanacho any consideration or love.
Did you have a tackle offensive tackle in your final mock?
Like in anywhere in the mock draft?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had Demetrius Crownover in the fourth round. That's
right.
where I had him. And then my thought was, like, if it wasn't going to be early, then it's hard to get that round 2 tackle because they're all gone by the time you're picking 53rd, which is the original slot Pittsburgh had. Because most of the tackles are gone early. Anyone who gets in the second round goes probably top 40 because they're just such a premium position. So, I thought Bell was going to go earlier than people thought, which I think he did. And Burke, I think, was about expectations. So it's hard to pick a tackle because there's only a couple names out there and teams are coveting them. So that's why I kind of went 4th round. So again, obviously very wrong on that, but that was kind of my thought process.
And I think I had Bell in, I don't know, what did I have him as? One of the third or was it the 4th? I forget which, but I did have a tackle in there, but I missed on Iheanacho as well too. All right, Bill Ewan, biggest mistake. The biggest mistake you both made was not taking the reports that the Steelers were high on tackle as a need. Don't beat yourselves up. Everybody poo-pooed the reports. I saw a few stating that, and I just dismissed it because I didn't see that as a huge need. Most people did. So another one on the tackle, and that was short and sweet from Bill Ewan in Columbus, Ohio. All right, Bill, you get a book. I hope I have enough here. I'm pretty sure I do.
Yeah.
Bill in Columbus, Ohio. Bill Ewan, send me an email with your mailing address. I'll get you a book out there. One more out there, and I think this came in via your...
I forwarded it to you.
Forward here from Michael. Alex, good morning. The one single mistake, David, you made during the pre-draft process is not projecting Max Iheanacho to the Steelers in the first round, not spending too much time evaluating him and speculating him being a first-round pick to the Steelers. Thanks for all you do. So Michael is another one on. So it seems like the biggest pushback collectively. And Michael, go ahead and send me your mailing address. I'll get a book out. You get a book. You get a book. All of you get a book for responding to this today. That'll make my wife happy, but she also has to pack these up and take them to. There's a trade-off here. I'm not leaving the house to send you people books. I think the biggest pushback we see here is the whole tackle discussion, and the defensive tackle discussion, right?
Yeah, it's mostly offensive tackle, which is fair when you're missing the first round pick. That's going to be front and center as it should be. So yeah, I mean, we'll live and learn. And kudos to those who did have tackle on the radar, like Todd McShay. He was screaming that for the last month before the draft, and we should have. What does that South Park mean? We should have listened. We should have listened to those guys.
All right, we try to do better. Hey, what this makes for a great show, letting readers nitpick us, and also I think that's fairly productive. We're not above it. I don't think we got our feelings hurt, but we try to learn every year, and we'll try to do a better job next year on a couple of these things as well too, especially with the year with Mike McCarthy being in here. I would expect more pro days next year, and yeah, we'll try to learn from the lack of Blues Clues maybe going into next offseason there. All right, Alex, I got through those. Anything else you'd like to add before we get out of here? Any late breaking news?
No, not that I'm aware of. So we'll be back on Friday to talk about the schedule. Going to be following all the leaks and announcements and everything that comes out. And so I'm sure our Friday show. All right, is there anything you're looking for in particular when it comes to the schedule? Anything you're going to be keeping a close eye on, Dave?
Obviously interested to see when the bye weeks are, or bye week is. I would imagine maybe it's going to be either before or after the trip to Paris, but we'll see. Interested, obviously, if the Steelers will indeed open at home this year, as we determine the Pirates will be playing. What about Paul Skeens, man? Holy moly, what a player what a pitcher that guy is. The Pirates play the Cubs, I think, on the road that opening weekend we determined. So I think it's a good opportunity for the Steelers to potentially open at home. What else is there? Obviously, they'll end the season against an AFC North team. Will they have more? How many divisional games will they play, I guess, before having to head over to Paris? I think that'll be interesting to watch.
And will Baltimore be early? Because last 2 years they've only played Baltimore like late in the season. They're 2 games, week 12 or later. Will they get an early game against Baltimore? I think that would make sense to kind of have. I think an early primetime game against Baltimore makes a lot of sense for the networks. New coaching staff, Steelers, Ravens, always a big draw. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened.
And then I guess too, I mean, we should probably expect this team to have a Sunday night game probably on the schedule, and with Mike Tomlin being part of the Sunday night crew now, it'll be interesting to see who the opponent winds up being for at least one Sunday night game that Mike Tomlin has to do. So I think that's something to look for that maybe we'll potentially write about once the schedule is released as well too.
4 or 5 primetime games, because that's probably they're going to get 4 or 5. The max I think is 5, but I'm going to say 4.
You're obviously probably going to have a Thursday night game, probably going to have a Sunday night game, probably going to have a Monday night game. What else? Prime time.
Just another one of those. So
okay.
It depends how many. So how many primetime games do you think in total?
5.
I think the 5. Okay, yeah, it could be. I'll say 4. To your question on Twitter,
I'm hoping for fewer. I love those long stretches of 1 o'clock games, but
preaching to the choir over, especially if McCarthy's going to speak on Mondays now.
Mm-hmm.
Man, can you imagine a night game and then all that on Monday? Oh, we're going to be grumpy people on Mondays. You had a good question on Twitter. As you said, the NFL has divisional games week 18. Should they have them in week 1 too?
No, I don't like week 1 divisional games. I don't. Period.
I think they should. I think they should be divisional games to begin the year and to end the year. Maybe that makes the schedule a little too inflexible for fun week 1 matchups, but I think it's fun to start the year big, tone setter, divisional opponents to begin the year. I think that's the right way to go about it.
I'd much rather really, if I had my druthers, teams would not play within divisions, I don't think, till at least week 3.
because they want
Just
teams to kind of feel themselves
yeah,
out, feel each other out.
yeah,
I don't know.
especially
It's
teams
divisional
with
play. We're going to feel each other out. You're in the
yeah,
division. I mean, who knows better the opposition than someone in your own division?
I mean, especially teams with new coaching staffs and all like that. And,
Yeah, but I don't know. Set the tone early. Set the tone early. Divisional play. Give me week 1, week 18. I'm all for that.
look, you asked my opinion. I gave it to you.
No,
So,
yeah.
now, look,
having
I'm
fun.
not in fan of what we saw a couple of years ago with all those things being, second half of the season. I think that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
There, but if it were up to me, I would not schedule any divisional games for any team until week 3. In fact, I would make probably week 3 the kind of universal. And look, I know a lot goes into this schedule making, and I think NFL Network or NFL .com, and I think I haven't watched it yet. I think it was released yesterday, the making of the schedule and all like that. I think that's quite interesting to look at because you got all these dates and things that you want to try to highlight and hit and all like that. So I find that interesting. But if it were up to me, I would make it where week 3 of the season is the first week of divisional play across the NFL, period.
Ooh. Okay, so you would have kind of an early divisional week, but just week 3 or 4 instead of week 1.
Yeah, I guess also if I had my druthers, I would make it kind of universal across the league that certain weeks during the year is nothing but divisional play across the entire NFL.
Oh, so multiple weeks. Okay, that's really interesting. All right, I dig it.
All right. Okay. Anything else that we have? I think that's got
Nope.
it, right?
That's everything.
Okay. Let us know what you think about everything that we hit on today. Good, bad, indifferent type conversations. What are your thoughts on the game over in Paris? Were you planning on going to Paris? Were you previously planning on going to New Orleans? Hit on the top 5 offseason rankings that Alex did during the for the offseason. See if we get any pushback there as well too. And for those of you that I said get a book, make sure to put book address or something in the title of the email so I know what I'm looking at so I can get those out as soon as possible here. So until Friday, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com. Find the ad-free button in the navigation. Hit that, sign up that way for an ad-free version of the site. So until Friday, bonjour. And as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.